Hello, hello, hello. This is Chris, and I made a really nice script just for you. That's you, the guy sitting there, listening to me, wondering, man, can he just get on with it? Yes, we're going to do that right now. So, basically what I made is a script that helps you control time. Basically the timing of your scene. So, how that works, let's create a couple objects. Maybe a cone, something like that, a tube. And let's get an animation going. I'm going to try to recreate the Battle of Helm's Deep, but it's kind of interpretive. So let's get that going. That was Gimli. This is Legolas, and you have Aragorn coming over here, but he's Aragorn. He's kind of a wimp. You know, the more the pressure gets put on him, the more he's like, I can't do it. I'm not worthy. So, yeah, fuck that guy. Alright, now that we have this battle, pretend the enemies are there. We don't really have time for the whole thing. But, we got our animation going, a couple keyframes. And if we want to be able to ramp time, there's a couple ways we could do it. Well, at least there's a couple ways we could change time. If we wanted this to play in slow motion, we could open up our time configuration dialog and change the frame rate to something much higher, and that'll actually just give you more frames, so when you play them back at 24 or 30 FPS, they will end up appearing to be slower. But that causes a whole bunch of problems, especially when you're trying to do simulations and stuff like that. They all kind of need a consistent frame rate, and so we don't want to do that. Also, we want to be able to ramp time, and that would just allow you to slow it down. So your compositor could then, has more frames to play with, can ramp time in post, but you have to render everything. It's just messy, and it's not a good way to do it. So what I found was a method where you actually take the objects, if they're transforming, you snapshot them, you skin wrap them to themselves, and then you point cache that. And then in the point cache, you change the playback rate to, or the playback type to playback graph, and that gives you control over the same thing. So with these three objects, we're going to do that right now, but without all the steps. We're just going to open up the SloMo MoFo script. We're going to pick a folder for the point caches to be saved into, and then we're going to do it. Bam! That was pretty quick, but what it did is it created this SloMo MoFo control object that contains an attribute holder with the frame rate. If you go into the point caches that are created, you see it's set to playback graph, and this value here is actually wire parametered to this value here. And it's like that for all the objects. So it looks exactly the same, but we can now, via a couple keyframes, change time. Look at that. Wow. And we could actually, let's do it even better. Let's make it something like this. Let's go back a couple keyframes here, something like that. We'll stretch this guy out. Let's hit play. See that? Yeah. In case you want to change your animation, if we go into our layer editor, you can see that a couple layers have been created. One is called Old Objects, and that actually contains your original objects with their keyframe data. So you still have access to those, and then you have your slow motion objects, which have the same materials and everything's accounted for. They're just linked up to the SloMo MoFo controller, and these are the ones that you could ramp time with. The controller should be put in the default layer. Okay, so that seems a little excessive for just trying to control time on these three objects, and I agree with that. That would be a little ridiculous. However, when you have something like this is a Mass Effects sim that I threw together really quickly. It's got this nice little red truck. It's going to blow through this wall and kill this guy. So here we go. Boom! He's dead. And that truck looks like it's made of rubber, but this is our animation. It's what the client wants. The client gets what the client wants. So each of these objects is still a Mass Effects rigid body, and it's just keyframe data. It's baked in keyframe data. And again, if you wanted to slow down time, you could change your frame rate, kind of messy. Or if you wanted to ramp time, you could go in and you could open up your, whoops, wrong button. You'd open up your curve editor, and you could say we want to start here. We could try to slide these guys over, and then, you know, deselect all but the last keyframe, slide those over a little bit more, and do that, you know, all the way down the end where we kind of ramp time. You're going to have some issues with the interpolation. Maybe it's going to come out linear. Maybe you're going to have some weird smooth bug where it kind of jumps around. And then at the end of the day, you still have to do it for all the objects in the scene. In this case, that would be 719 objects. That would really suck. I don't ever want to do that again. I did that once, and it didn't look all that great. So, with this in mind, let's grab all of these objects, and let's go to the SloMo MoFo script and hit do it. Let's grab our folder where we're going to save all of our caches and hit OK. So I'm gonna run this script now. It's going to take roughly 5 minutes with this many objects and this many polygons. So I'm going to pause the video, and then we'll come back when it's finished. And it's done. Well, it's almost done. It gives you this this little message, and then when you hit OK, it's got a little bit more processing to do. So let's hit OK, and I'll be back in a moment. Alright, and now it is actually done. So let's look at what we have here. First things first, you're going to see that character looks a little funky. This does happen sometimes. Skin wraps are a little weird. So what I have built into to that is you could actually turn off the point cache, turn on the skin wrap, and if you just take this distance of influence a little bit higher, that should be, let's see, there you go, nice and cleaned up. Same if it happens on any of the bricks or anything like that. It's a bug, I gotta work it out, but for now I just gave you the skin wrap you still have access to. Then you turn your point cache on and just hit record again. And there you go. And it's still linked up, so that's good. Sweet. So now that we have this, we still have our control object. Under, I guess we'll. Oh, I put it in the environment. My apologies. It actually just puts in the default layer, like whatever you have set to be the default. So, whatever. Here we go. Car smashes into it just like before. Now we want to ramp time right at the impact. So, let's go a frame before the impact and just add a keyframe there. That's at 90. Let's go a little further, and let's set this to say 92. 94. 98. That looks pretty cool. So if we go back here, you can try to hit play and watch it. You notice it's a little chunky compared to what it used to be. You can still see the times ramping. We could speed that up though. One thing I found is you could actually preload the caches. Well, it's not something I found. I found out that it would be a good idea to implement. So preload caches basically goes into each of the point cache objects and sets the load type instead of stream to preload. So it loads every frame of the point cache into memory, so it's available on demand. Now, if you have a little bit of a slower computer or if you have a larger sim, you don't want to do this, which is why it's off by default. So I'm going to turn it on, give it a second to update. It's got to load everything into memory. That wasn't too bad. And if you look, it now plays back much more smoothly. So let's go back here, hit play. Boom. and then it goes back to normal speed. So I'm going to play around with this scene a little bit and see if I can't make a preview that looks kind of neat in, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'll show that to you, and I think that'll be about it for this video. Let's get to it.
Voy a cantar esta canción con mucho cariño de mi corazón a la República Dominicana, la casa del merengue.